When my son chose her over me, I didn't cry. Not at first. I sat quietly in the kitchen, the kettle hissing softly, the rain tapping against the window. I watched him leave the house that day, suitcase in hand, and felt a strange mix of emptiness and disbelief. He looked back once, just a fleeting glance, but it didn't carry the warmth I had hoped for. I thought I had raised him to be kind, to understand love in all its forms, and yet, he chose someone else. It's a feeling I never imagined I would face. The house felt too big, too silent. Every corner reminded me of the years I had poured into him, the late-night talks, the scraped knees I had bandaged, the meals I had made just the way he liked. I had imagined that no matter what, he would always turn to me first. But that day, the reality hit me like a quiet storm. I remember standing by the doorway as he walked to the car. His wife, holding his hand, looked happy, almost triumphant. I smiled at them, because what else could I do? I didn't want to make him feel guilty. But inside, my heart ached in a way that words can't capture. I thought about all the times I had worried, all the nights I had stayed awake wondering if I was doing enough. And now, it seemed like it had never been enough. For a moment, I replayed the last conversation I had with him. He had said softly, almost apologetically, "Mom, I think it's time we live our own lives. She needs me to." I nodded, pretending I understood, but inside, I was breaking. I told myself it wasn't anger I felt. It was something quieter, more bitter, disappointment, the kind that comes from realizing that the person you've given everything to doesn't always return it in the way you expect. I sat down at the kitchen table, watching the steam rise from my cup of tea. The rain outside blurred the garden, turning the world into soft, gray shapes. I thought about all the birthdays, the school projects, the late-night stories, and how easily they seemed to fade from his memory now. He was a grown man, of course. He had every right to make his own choices. But right then, I felt invisible. I felt replaced. Yet, even as I sat there, feeling the quiet ache, I reminded myself of something important. Life doesn't stop when we are hurt. It moves forward, one small step at a time. And though my heart felt heavy, I knew I had to find a way to let go. Not because he didn't love me, but because love sometimes looks different than we imagine. That was the day I first realized that parenting isn't about holding on. It's about learning to let go, even when your heart whispers otherwise. And in that stillness, I promised myself I would survive this, even if it meant surviving alone. My son's name is Ahmed. I raised him alone from the moment he was born. His father left us when Ahmed was barely 2, and from that day, it was just the two of us against the world. People often asked me how I managed it all: the work, the house, the school, and raising a child alone. Some days were easier than others. Most days were long, quiet, and exhausting. But Ahmed, he made every struggle worth it. I remember holding him in my arms when he was a baby, feeling the weight of responsibility mixed with hope. I promised him, silently, that no matter what, I would always be there. I would protect him, I would guide him, and I tried to keep that promise in every small way. From helping him with his homework, to staying up when he was sick at night, I gave him everything I could. I never wanted him to feel alone the way I sometimes had felt as a child. As he grew older, we shared simple moments that, at the time, seemed ordinary, but now feel precious. Cooking together in the kitchen, him laughing as he spilled flour everywhere, sitting in the living room while he told me stories from school, his eyes wide with excitement. I listened, encouraged, and sometimes worried, as every mother does, but it was more than worry. It was love, constant and unwavering. I thought those small moments built a bond nothing could break. Ahmed was always polite, kind, and sensitive, but as he grew into a young man, I noticed small changes. He became quiet sometimes, distracted, and distant. I blamed myself at first, wondering if I had done something wrong. Had I spoiled him too much, or not enough? Had I not understood him as well as I thought I did? I couldn't put my finger on it, and for a while, I ignored it, hoping it was just a phase. Then came the day he met her, his wife. She was charming, smart, and confident. I liked her at first. I wanted to trust that she would love him and respect our bond. But slowly, I began to see subtle signs that things were changing. He started making plans without me. Small things at first. Dinners, movies, trips, and then, bigger decisions. I told myself it was natural. He was growing up. But deep down, I felt the distance growing. The bond I thought was unbreakable quietly slipping away. Looking back now, I can see the first cracks forming in those years. I just didn't realize how wide the gap would become until the day he left. Until the day I sat in that quiet kitchen, watching him walk out the door with her by his side, my heart heavy but my voice calm. Sometimes life teaches us lessons in the smallest, quietest ways. And I learned that day that love and sacrifice don't always guarantee loyalty. We give everything we have, and still, some paths diverge. And as hard as it was, I knew I had to accept it, if not today, then, eventually. If you've ever felt the pain of being replaced or misunderstood by someone you love, you're not alone. Please like this video, share it with someone who might relate, and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories that touch the heart. After Ahmed left that day, the house felt different. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, almost suffocating. Every time I walked past the empty living room or looked at his childhood photos, I felt the ache of absence. I tried to fill my days with chores, errands, and visits to neighbors, but nothing could fill that hollow space. At first he called occasionally, short conversations, polite and distant. "How are you, Mom?" he'd ask, and I'd respond, keeping my voice steady. But there was always something missing in his tone, warmth, the closeness we once had. I remember one night, I asked him if he would come over for dinner. There was a long pause on the line before he said, softly, "I can't tonight. Maybe next week." I forced a smile, though no one was there to see it. "Okay," I whispered to myself, and hung up, feeling the weight of rejection without anger, just quiet sadness. Small tensions started to appear, too. His wife began to make comments that, at first, I brushed off. "He's busy, Mom. Let him rest." Or, "He wants some space. You understand, right?" I tried. I really did. But each comment, each small excuse, made me feel more like a guest in my own son's life than a mother. I noticed how she planned trips and gatherings without including me, how she subtly suggested that certain traditions were outdated or not necessary. One evening, I tried to help Ahmed with a small problem, a repair around the house. He looked at me, almost hesitating, and said, "Mom, I've got this. You don't need to worry." The words themselves weren't harsh, but the tone was different. It was the tone of distance, of someone trying to protect their own space. I understood, logically, but emotionally, it stung. It felt like the hands that once reached for mine were now gently pushing me away. I remember the quiet nights when I would sit by the window, tea in hand, watching the streetlights flicker. I thought about the years we shared, the sacrifices, the laughter, and the small moments of joy that had once seemed eternal. I asked myself over and over, did I fail him somehow? Did I let something slip away without noticing? But deep down, I knew I hadn't. I had given him all that I had, and yet, love alone sometimes isn't enough to hold someone close. Then came the day that truly changed everything. A misunderstanding over a simple family gathering grew into tension. Small words whispered, feelings hurt. I realized then that our bond, the bond I had thought unbreakable, was quietly unraveling. The rising distance wasn't dramatic, it wasn't explosive. It was slow, almost invisible, until one day I could see it clearly. My son's loyalty was no longer mine to claim. It was a painful lesson in the quiet cruelty of life, that even the deepest love can face choices that leave your heart aching. And yet, as I sat there, staring at the rain-soaked garden, I knew that understanding, patience, and quiet acceptance would be my only refuge. The day everything became clear is etched in my memory. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind where the sunlight streams through the kitchen window, and the house seems calm, almost ordinary. But inside, I felt a storm building that I couldn't ignore. Ahmed had invited his wife over to discuss plans for an upcoming family event. I thought it would be a simple conversation, perhaps a chance to reconnect. I was wrong. As soon as she arrived, I sensed the tension. She greeted me politely, but there was an edge to her smile. We talked about small things at first, the weather, the garden, dinner plans, but then she mentioned, almost casually, that Ahmed preferred it if I didn't attend certain gatherings. My heart froze. "He said that," I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She nodded. "He wants to focus on his new life. He thinks it's best if things are simple." I sat there, stunned, as the words sank in. My son, the boy I had raised with all my love, had made a choice. And it wasn't just about a gathering or a meal. It was about me, about our relationship, about the bond I thought we shared. I felt a mix of disbelief, heartbreak, and sorrow. How could someone you've given everything to quietly step aside, letting another person decide where you belong. I looked at Ahmed when he entered the room. His eyes met mine, and I saw the hesitation there, the discomfort, the attempt to protect both of us. But it didn't hide the truth. He had chosen a life that left me on the outside. "Mom," he started, but I held up my hand gently. "I know," I whispered. There were no angry words, no shouting, just the quiet ache of realization. For a moment, the room felt unbearably silent. I thought about all the nights I had stayed awake, worrying, hoping, loving, and now, it seemed that love wasn't enough to keep him close. I felt the weight of every sacrifice, every tender moment, every shared laugh, and I understood, sometimes love means letting go, even when it's the hardest thing in the world. I didn't argue, and I didn't beg. I simply smiled, softly, and said, "I want you to be happy." Inside, my heart ached, but I knew I had to accept this. That day, I realized that sometimes, even the deepest bonds can be tested by choices that feel unfair, by life paths that diverge. I had given Ahmed my all, and now, I had to find the strength to move forward without him, or with him, in a different way. It was a turning point, not just for our relationship, but for me. I learned that love isn't always about possession. Sometimes, love is quiet, patient, and understanding, even in the face of loss. And that realization, as painful as it was, became my guide to healing. If you've ever felt the pain of being left behind by someone you love, you're not alone. Please like this video, share it with someone who might relate, and subscribe to my channel for more heartfelt, real-life stories that touch the soul. After that day, the house felt emptier, but in a different way. The initial shock of Ahmed's choice had faded, replaced by a quiet acceptance. I still missed him, of course. I still longed for the simple moments we used to share, cooking together, laughing at silly stories, or just sitting side by side in silence. But I began to understand that life doesn't stop for grief. It moves forward, gently nudging us to find strength we didn't know we had. I started spending more time on things I had neglected over the years. Gardening became a quiet comfort. Planting, watering, watching new life grow. I visited neighbors, reconnected with old friends, and even started volunteering at the local library. Small steps, at first, but they filled the hours and soothed the ache in my chest. Each day, I realized I could be happy on my own. Even if Ahmed's presence was less than before, sometimes I would receive a message from him, a quick hello, a question about a recipe, or a small life update. Each time, my heart warmed a little. I realized that even though our relationship had changed, it wasn't completely gone. He was still my son, and love, I learned, isn't always about closeness in every moment. Sometimes, it's quiet, subtle, and enduring, even from a distance. I remember one evening, sitting by the window with a cup of tea, watching the sun set behind the trees. I thought about everything the years we had shared, the sacrifices I had made, the small joys and challenges. I felt a sense of peace. I had loved him fully, and that love hadn't disappeared. It had simply taken a new form, one that allowed him to live his life while still carrying me in his heart. On those quiet moments, I realized that forgiveness wasn't about him. It was about me. It was about letting go of the hurt, the disappointment, the unspoken sadness, and finding a way to move forward with grace. I forgave him for the choices he had made, and I forgave myself for the moments I thought I hadn't done enough. It was liberating, almost like breathing fresh air after being underwater for years. I also understood that love doesn't always follow the rules we imagine. Sometimes it shifts, adapts, and changes shape, and that's okay. The bond between a mother and her child is never entirely broken. It just grows in unexpected ways. I had learned to hold love gently, without the expectation of possession, and in doing so, I found a new kind of strength. Life had moved on, and so had I. I found joy in quiet mornings, in laughter with friends, and in watching the seasons change. And though Ahmed's life had taken a different path, I knew that love could survive across distances, across choices, across time. It didn't have to look the way I had imagined it, to be real or meaningful. It was real, because it lived in my heart, steady, patient, enduring. As time went on, I realized that life doesn't always follow the story we imagine for ourselves. The bond I shared with Ahmed had changed, yes, but it had not disappeared. Love, I learned, is not about possession or control. It is quiet, patient, and enduring. Even when the people we care for make choices we do not expect, I began to see that my role as a mother was not to hold on tightly, but to give freely, and sometimes to step back when needed. There were days when I still felt the ache of distance. I would walk past his empty room, glance at his childhood toys stored in the closet, or catch a familiar photograph of us smiling together. Each time, I felt a wave of nostalgia and longing. But alongside that sadness, I also felt pride. I had raised a good man, kind and capable, even if his life path had taken him somewhere different. I learned to celebrate the person he had become, rather than mourn the person I wished he would stay. I also discovered the importance of living my own life. I spent mornings tending to my garden, afternoons chatting with friends, and evenings simply reading or listening to music. Small joys became my anchor, and slowly, I realized that happiness isn't dependent on anyone else. It's a quiet, steady flame that grows when we nurture ourselves. In embracing my own life, I found peace, not bitterness or regret. Every now and then, Ahmed would visit, bringing a smile, a story, or a small gesture of connection. Those moments were brief, but they reminded me that our bond was still alive. Love does not always follow the timeline we expect, and it does not always look the way we imagine, but it persists quietly, in small words, small actions, and shared memories. Looking back, I see now that the pain I felt when he chose another life over mine was a lesson, painful, yes, but also transformative. It taught me forgiveness, patience, and the enduring strength of a mother's love. I learned that letting go does not mean giving up. It means trusting that love can survive across distances, across choices, across time, and in that trust, I found a quiet freedom I had never known before. If you are watching this story and have ever felt replaced, misunderstood, or left behind by someone you love, know that you are not alone. Healing is possible, and love can take many forms, even when life doesn't go the way we planned. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who might relate, and subscribe to my channel for more heartfelt, real-life stories that remind us of the power of love, patience, and understanding. In the months after Ahmed's choice, I spent a lot of time thinking about what it means to be a mother, and what it means to truly love someone. I realized that my role was never to control his life, nor to shape his decisions. My role was to guide, nurture, and support him, and sometimes, to accept that the people we love will make choices we don't fully understand. I began to reflect on all the years I had spent raising him alone. Those years had been full of sacrifices, yes, but also joy. I remembered the first time he rode a bicycle, the time he came home with a small award from school, the nights we stayed up talking about his dreams and fears. All of those moments were mine to cherish, and no one could take them away. Even now, though our daily lives had diverged, the memories remained as a quiet source of comfort. I also realized that my heart had grown stronger through this experience. At first, I had felt broken, replaced, and unseen, but slowly, through patience and self-reflection, I discovered resilience I didn't know I had. I found strength in accepting reality, and peace in letting go of expectations. Life had given me a lesson in humility and forgiveness, and in the quiet moments, I learned to forgive not just Ahmed, but also myself. One afternoon, I sat in the garden, watching the flowers bloom after the spring rain. I thought about the cycles of life, how seasons change, how growth sometimes comes after hardship, and how beauty can emerge even after storms. It struck me that my relationship with Ahmed was similar. Though our closeness had changed, there was still love, still connection, and still hope for gentle understanding. The bond we shared had not vanished. It had transformed. I began to appreciate the small moments in life more deeply. A phone call from Ahmed that lasted a few minutes, a smile exchanged during a visit, even the memories of our quiet evenings together. All of these became treasures. I realized that love is not always about constant closeness. Sometimes it is about trust, respect, and knowing that hearts can stay connected even from a distance. This reflection also allowed me to extend compassion, not just to but to his wife, and to others in my life. I understood that life is full of choices, and that we cannot always control how others act, or whom they love, but we can control how we respond, and we can choose patience, understanding, and love. Through all of this, I learned a valuable lesson. Relationships evolve, people grow, and life moves forward. The ache of loss is real, but so is the power of acceptance. And in that acceptance, we find not only peace, but also hope. The quiet, steady hope that love can endure, even in unexpected ways. Looking back on everything, I realized that life has a quiet way of teaching us lessons we don't always want to learn. The day my son chose another life over mine was one of the hardest days I have ever faced, and yet, it became a turning point, not just in our relationship, but in my own heart. I learned that love is not about possession. It's not about holding on tightly or demanding loyalty. True love is patient, understanding, and often, quietly letting go. I think about Ahmed now, and I feel a deep sense of pride. He is a good man, capable and kind. He has built a life with someone he loves, and I respect that. The path he chose may have left me feeling distant at times, but it did not erase the bond we share. Love, I have come to understand, can survive change. It can exist even when the closeness we imagined shifts, even when choices are made that feel painful. At the same time, I have grown in ways I never expected. I learned patience, forgiveness, and resilience. I learned to cherish my own life, to find joy in the small moments, and to trust that happiness does not depend entirely on others. There is beauty in independence, in quiet strength, and in learning to love without expectations. Life moves forward, and we must move with it gently, with grace, and with hope. I also learned the value of perspective. What felt like rejection at first was really an opportunity for growth. It was a chance to understand that relationships are living things. They evolve, shift, and sometimes take forms we do not expect. And in that evolution, there is still meaning, still love, and still connection, even if it is quieter, subtler, and from a distance. Now, when I sit by the window in the evenings, watching the sunset, I feel a deep sense of peace. I smile as I think about the memories I have, the love I gave, and the lessons I learned. Life has not been perfect, and our story has had its share of heartache, but it has also been rich, full, and filled with moments of tenderness that I will carry forever. If there is one thing I hope my story teaches, it is this: love is patient, love is forgiving, and love does not always look the way we imagine. Even when we feel left behind, even when paths diverge, love can endure, and in learning to accept that, we find peace, hope, and the courage to keep moving forward. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who might relate, and subscribe to my channel for more real-life, emotional stories that remind us of the strength of love, patience, and understanding.